I'm Tom, this is Lucy, and this is Kitty Help Desk. So today I wanted to talk to you a few minutes about the ways that cats deal with conflict. In the wild, even though cats are fairly social animals, many of them live solitary lives in the wild. And that means that they don't encounter other cats all that frequently. And when they do encounter them, that's usually a case where there's some conflict about resources and territory, because another cat moving into your territory means that you might not have all that you need because you're using your territory for food and for water and for safety from predators. So generally speaking, cats tend to want to be defensive when they see other cats. And they go into a mode where they try to drive the other cat away from their territory. Now, an interloper cat surely knows that they don't belong in that territory. But in many cases, they're out looking for new territory because they don't have the resources that they need to live their lives. So it's only reasonable that they go out and they start trying to find new territories to inhabit. Sometimes cats can learn to share if there are abundant resources. In the case of a cat colony where someone is feeding cats or taking care of cats in the neighborhood or whatever, then more cats can gather without competition. Although they may still feel, even in your home, they may still feel some competition, some competitive urges, and those can often contribute to problems such as behavioral issues, things like going outside the litter box or hissing and fighting between cats, because cats didn't evolve in a world that had walls. And putting them in a world with walls, it really kind of crushes that world down quite a bit. And they can thrive within our homes just fine. But when you introduce a new cat into a situation where an existing cat has had pretty much the entire house as their territory, then there's likely to be some form of conflict. Now, out in the wild, the way that cats deal with conflict, their number one method of dealing with conflict is avoidance. Cats develop extremely complex methods of time sharing areas that are sort of on the proximity of their territory. So when I lived in Los Angeles, at one point I lived in some bungalow apartments they were called garden apartments because they had been designed in the 1940s after World War II as veterans housing, and they had bungalows that were around the outside, but in the middle there were large green areas and trees and things. It's not the kind of thing you normally see in Los Angeles, and it's immediately what attracted me to it. And out there were often cats of my neighbors that were allowed to go outside. And so I got a lot of chance to observe them and see how they sort of time shared that yard. And I could see that, a cat would be out rolling around in the grass or enjoying the day or sitting in a sunbeam or something. And another cat would be at the edge of that area, kind of just sort of sitting, watching, waiting. And they would not move into that area until the cat that was occupying it at that time had moved on. And that's what I mean by avoidance. They would know. They really, honestly, they had worked out a schedule, and only the cats involved in the schedule really understood it, but they would show up and be in a particular area at a particular time of day, and they would repeat that every day. And the other cats in the area wouldn't enter into that area. They would kind of stay at the periphery or up on a wall somewhere, or maybe up on top of the garage building over here, kind of watching, trying to wait. And then when it was their turn, they would come and occupy that area. And that's really the way cats handle it in the wild. They have a vested interest in not getting into fights with one another, because getting into fights is noisy and can attract predators. I mean, if you think about it, a cat's first warning signs are all physical, like thrashing the tail, getting low to the ground, maybe a small growl, but when it escalates to a hiss, and the hiss is really, a way of expressing discontent without letting your neighbors know about it, because letting the neighbors know about it, who knows, the neighbor might be a wolf that would come and eat you if they knew that you were there and both cats were in a fight. So when cats really get into a boisterous, noisy fight, which can sometimes happen during mating, that's sort of a last resort situation. That's where they have been pushed to their limit. Now, within our homes, cats will often vocalize. They learn to vocalize because we respond to them vocalizing. We don't often see a lot of their physical displays where they are trying to tell us things. I've been at clients' homes, and the cat comes up and sits next to the owner and just looks at the owner and kind of closes her eyes and looks at the owner. And the owner just continues to talk to me and totally ignores the cat. And I will tell them, she's trying to get your attention. She wants some attention. She wants you to pet her. And she's like, what? How do you know that? I'm like, because I'm looking at her. And she would reach over, and the cat would just be like, oh yes, I love to pet. And because her request had been responded to. So because many times humans tend to ignore cat requests, they step up their game to vocalize. And then within the safety of the home, where there aren't many predators, or that they don't think there are that many predators, then they tend to relax and they will vocalize more frequently. So their whole situation, both in our homes and in the wild, is to try to live peacefully, because conflict creates pain and maybe injury and maybe death. So they really have a vested interest in keeping the peace, and we can help them do that by helping them to divide up the territories in our home. Instead of one large room, you can have some boxes on the floor, and the cats will see those as individual territories within the larger territory of, say, your living room. It helps them to share that area without feeling like they're in competition for it. So thank you, Mina. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.